Hey everybody, it's Rod coming back at you with another video for the Photo Fair. The next Photo Fair show isn't until April 2nd, and that'll be down in California at the Newark Pavilion in Newark, California. Today I thought I'd do a little something different that I've done. I will probably be doing a video on this Russian Jupiter 85 f2 in Contax mount and old rangefinder lens. It's kind of a fun lens, old-fashioned lens. But today what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about, in general, when using these older vintage lenses on modern digital cameras, some of the things you can do to kind of improve the image quality without ruining the vintage look. And a lot of that you do in post-processing. And today I'm going to go over just a little tip that I've been doing when using these old lenses and to take advantage of powerful software like Photoshop and Lightroom. Today I want to talk a little bit about Lightroom. So with no further ado, I'm going to get into today's Lightroom tip. One note of disclosure, I'm pretty good at Lightroom, but there's other people here on YouTube that are just amazing with tips on using that software to get the most out of it. Today I'm just showing you a couple things that I do that I think are pretty effective, particularly doing what I love to do, which is shooting old vintage lenses on modern cameras. So let's take a look. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. This is the latest edition of Lightroom, and forgive the audio. I'm using the webcam mic because my wonderful M1 Mac Mini does not have a analog mic input, and this is the only USB mic I have. So I'll try to clean it up in post, but it's probably going to sound like crap. You also might hear noises outside. There's a street crew working on the street in the middle of the winter. Don't know why. That's unusual, but there it is. So I'll do the best I can, and hopefully I've silenced my notifications. Sometimes they want to notify me anyway. So here's a picture of Mindy, my lovely little dog that we took in last year. And she was sitting on the couch here. It's just a snapshot. And I was really just testing out that old Russian Jupiter 85 f2 lens from the 1950s. And I've already applied some basic tweaks here. You can see I have a standard one-click tweak that I can do here. You know, that lens, there's no contrast. It was low contrast lighting. The lights are above her and behind her, which is not ideal. But you can see that just a little bit of tweaking. I still think it has a vintage look, and I also made a few additional tweaks here. Now, we don't have any sharpening applied here, so zero sharpening. And I don't like sharpening photos that are mostly out of focus. So this is a shallow depth of field scenario. She's got basically a raccoon mask of sharpness around her face here, and then this ear, she's tilted forward, so this ear kind of came into the plane of focus a little as well. But everything else is out of focus, soft, beautiful, and creamy. We don't want to apply a sharpen to that area. It will look sharpened, and it'll ruin that creamy, dreamy bokeh here, which is kind of why we use these old lenses most of the time. I did achieve sharp focus on this eye right here. This lens is not tack sharp. You can see that. But there's no camera shake here. I had IBIS on. It's just, that's as sharp as this lens gets. Okay? What I want to do, though, to really make this a little bit better than just a garden variety snapshot is to accentuate her eyes. She has beautiful eyes, an orangey amber, but you don't really see them because they're not directly lit. And it is kind of dark and the contrast is kind of flat. So I want to apply some local masking here. And Lightroom has added the ability to do that much easier than older versions. And so here we have a little mask tool here. Click right there. I'm going to select brush because I want to brush it on. Now I've already got a pretty good sized brush. You'll notice there's two circles here, moving it around for you. The inner circle is going to be basically 100%, and then the outer circle is a feather range, where it feathers from 100% to basically nothing, kind of like graduates out. That way, if I go a little over in areas I don't want to do, it doesn't blow it out and ruin it. And actually, I think the circle needs to be a little smaller. On the Mac, with a trackpad, you just go down, 2 fingers down on the trackpad will shrink the size. Not sure how you do it on PC, but that's you can definitely do it on PC. So anyway, we've got now a small enough thing. So see how I'm going over into an area I might not want to go into. A little smaller. Well, that's too small. There we go. So we're going to do that. So now I'm going to apply. What am I going to do with this mask brush? Well, I'm going to add some exposure. I'm going to start with about maybe 3/4 of a stop. That might be too much. We'll find out. We're going to punch up the whites because I don't want those catch lights to become washed out or dull. So we're going to keep the whites intense. We're going to drop the blacks a lot. Why? Because I don't want the pupils to get cloudy or kind of gray. We want to keep the pupils black like they're supposed to be. And then just a wee bit of dehaze because it tends to get hazy when you start doing that. So I'm going to start on the sharp eye. Okay? So I'm just going to brush this in, and you can see I'm not adding any saturation here. This is just a little more exposure because the light was, again, behind her and above her. The eyes were not getting illuminated. So I've effectively added a little fill light here on her. I'm trying to keep it away from the dark part of her skin there so that it doesn't look. And I like to get those eyelashes up there. All right? Because that's really where the point of focus was. And then I'm going to do the same over here. Okay? Now, be nice to me. Come in. There it goes. And so I've kind of done the same to that eye. Now, this lens is not tack sharp. So I want to add a little sharpness to it. But I don't want to add that sharpness to this eye. All right, but before I want to show you one other thing before I move on to the sharpening. So I can change the exposure of both of those painted masks that I just did. I could crank it up and go nuts. I can go dark. That's pretty sketchy. And I can dial it into really where I want it. And I think that 3/4 stops is maybe about right. And the cool thing is that it will hold this mask in memory, so I can come back and tweak it later. But I do think I want a little less black level here. Get that dialed down to keep those pupils black like they're supposed to be. And I think everything else is fine. I might add a little saturation just to bring out the beautiful color of her eyes. I don't want to go overboard with it. It's really hard to get it just right, but that should be fine. Alright, so now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit this plus button. So this plus button is going to keep me in the exact same mode, but it's going to allow me to open up another mask. Now, I'm going to do another brush layer, but I could add a gradient, a linear gradient. There's a lot of things I can do here. And I'm not the superstar Lightroom guy. The only ones I ever really use are linear gradient, radial gradient, and brush. I don't think I've ever done a color range or a luminance range on this yet. So now you can see I've just created a new mask. Now, this little button right here toggles on and off. So let's go here. Toggles on and off the area I brushed, which is kind of a cool thing. And then I'm got to do that again since I did that. Now we got the new thing. So that's what that does, just if you were curious. Allows you to see where you brushed. So now I'm going to, with this brush, all I'm going to do is add some texture. I'm not even going to do sharpening. I'm just going to use texture. Because I think the texturing looks a little better than the sharpening. And I'm only going to do this eye, because this is the eye I'm focused on. So I'm going to come right up across the top of her eyelashes here. I'm going to bring it in. This is 1250 ISO. Alright, we got a little bit of noise there. I'm going to get that eyelid sharp. Just kind of punch it in. Now, it's getting a little noisy, but remember, we're at 100% here. This is pixel for pixel. And I'm just painting it in. Now, the more I swirl this around, I'm not adding more texture. All I'm doing is just making sure I don't have any holiday spots where I missed. And that's where that red feature comes in handy. And I don't. Right? There's no open holiday. So now I'm done with that, and I'm going to hit done. And now I'm going to zoom out. Now our eyes pop, particularly this sharp eye. I think I might have gone just a little too much on the exposure there. It looks just a little unnatural, so I might come back in and dial that back, and that's the beauty of it. If I open that tool again, it remembers. So I can come back here, that was the exposure, and I can just say, yeah, let me maybe just pull that back just a little bit, maybe like that. I think that looks a little more natural, but really it's your choice. You know, I don't want the eyes to be, you know, glowing in the dark. So that's kind of just adds a little extra pop. And we did it all local. So none of that affected the rest of the photo here. All of the creamy, delicious bokeh here is still creamy and delicious. I didn't ruin the whole photo just to try and bring out some sharpness. I could, if I wanted to, paint a little texture into these other sharp areas, you know, to make it, because that lens is not tack sharp, but I don't think I need to do it here. I think that the fact that I got the eye sharp, and that's about as good as it's going to get on that lens, but adding that extra texture gives it really a pretty good sharp look to a lens that's not very sharp, and again, doesn't ruin the rest of the image by processing out of focus areas and trying to make them sharp. So that's the tip of the day here. To avoid just sharpening your images, just go in and selectively sharpen a clean edge or the point of focus that was supposed to be sharp, and leave the rest of the image alone. So I hope that's helpful. Again, there's a lot of great YouTubers out here that are way better at Lightroom than I am, but this is just something I've learned over the years because I don't like the way sharpening an image makes it look. It looks sharpened, and even people that aren't into photography will kind of look at that like, something about that. You know, and it's because you're trying to sharpen fuzzy areas that aren't supposed to be sharp. And so this is just a way you can do it quick and easy in Lightroom. You can, of course, do this in Photoshop as well, but it's actually a little more complicated in Photoshop. So that's what I like about Lightroom. It's a more simple workflow. If you need to make, you know, multiple layers and lots of stuff like that, obviously Photoshop's the way to go. I use Photoshop a lot, you know, when I'm building advertising for my real estate business. But for just fiddling around with photos, I really like Lightroom, and I can do most of what I need to do in Lightroom. Especially in the last couple of years, they've added this really good masking tool. It's way better than it used to be. At least I think so. So that's kind of it. One other note, this was all under LED lights with the warm tone. That's why I had to dial the color temperature down so low here. It was really yellow, and so that was the other tweak I did that doesn't show up here with my before and after. That's kind of it. I hope that was helpful. This is great for people if you're out there, you're going to the shows like the photo fair shows, and you're buying these old lenses and using them on a modern camera. That's exactly why I started doing this, and it's because I've got a lot of those lenses. A lot of the videos I've done have been on vintage lenses, and if you want to play around with those vintage lenses, you can get some pretty good results. And I didn't have to spend a bunch of time on this image, 10, 15 minutes, if that, on this image. I don't even think it was that long. It was slower only because I was narrating the thing. So I think it's great that you can get a little bit better shot out of these old vintage lenses without giving up that vintage character. So thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful for you. Again, the next photo fair is April the 2nd at the Newark Pavilion in Newark, California. Go to photofair.com and see all the shows scheduled for 2022. We've got them all confirmed except Portland. Portland will be confirmed shortly. We're just waiting on the military department to get back to us to confirm our date. Look forward to having you back again here on YouTube for the next video or out at the shows up and down the west coast of the United States. Be sure to check out shows in your area, wherever you live. It's a great way to find cool stuff like old vintage lenses like this one. We'll see you next time.